Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in awe. Keep with the web of creation your vow, giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten thy pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Welcome, friends gathered on the sanctuary on Zoom and later on our YouTube channel. It is so good to be together. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Franklin, to the Smoky Mountains of Western North Carolina and Northeast Georgia, and the ancestral land of the Cherokee people. We are a lay-led congregation of progressive minds and caring connections. My name is Mary Teslow, and I'm delighted to be your service leader this morning. We extend a warm welcome to those who may be visiting with us today for the first time or returning after a while. We're so glad you're with us and look forward to getting to know you better. There'll be an opportunity to introduce yourself later in the service, and you can sign up for our newsletter in the guest book in the foyer. As we gather each Sunday, we take a moment to greet each other on Zoom and here in the sanctuary, affectionately the Zoomies and the Roomies. Roomies, please rise in body or spirit for our wave hello and stay standing for our gathering song. Our wave hello, we turn and look at the door and the camera above it and we wave, and our Zoomies are there waving back to us. And now our gathering song, Spirit of Life, with sign language.
With the
We appreciate our Sunday service team, Warren, Becky, Ben, Edgar, and Penny on Zoom. We appreciate Karen helping with our hospitality and all our volunteers. Are there any announcements on Zoom this morning? Please be sure to stay up to date by checking the UU View, our website, and the bulletin board downstairs in Celebration Hall. Our fellowship is a light for liberal religion in the mountains that values diversity and the richness it brings to our community. Our celebration of diversity is reflected in the variety of our Sunday services. In addition to different topics, our service sequence and length sometimes varies. We hope today's service enriches your journey of discovery. Today, we honor our commitment to climate justice as we welcome Skye Cahoon, Outreach Director for Mainspring Conservation Trust, with a message titled, "The Missing Native Link." Our chalice lighting. We light this chalice for the earth, fragile and resilient, wounded and wondrous. We light it in honor of air and water, soil and seed, the creatures with whom we share this home. May the flame kindle in us a fierce love for the planet and a steadfast commitment to justice for all beings, for all generations to come. An anthem is a rousing or uplifting song identified with a particular group or cause. For the UUA's Climate Justice Revival, the team commissioned an anthem to celebrate our denomination-wide work for climate justice. The talented musicians Leah Morris and Adam Pod have gifted us with the song entitled "Part of It." It calls us to choose survival and make an art of it. Poetic ways of stating that we are committed to working for the flourishing world. Because our care of the planet and all its creatures is an existential task, the lyrics reflect our sense of urgency, as well as passion, dedication, and joy in the work. The song also calls us to curiosity, humility, creativity, and grace. The work does not fall on one person's shoulders alone. Contributions individuals make are part of the solution. We must ground our solutions in community care with love at the center. And now, part of it.
There's an eternal secret
We are delighted to have Skye Cahoon with us today. Skye's primary responsibility as Mainspring's Conservation Trust Director is connecting people with their local landscapes. Several of our UUFF community have joined her for a hike, workshop, or other event to get to know the lands, waters, and cultural resources Mainspring conserves. Fireflies have been a big favorite lately, for sure. Skye grew up in Massachusetts and as a kid could often be found climbing trees, hunting for salamanders, or chasing fish at her local swimming hole. Her passion for nature grew with her, and in 2020 she earned her BS in zoology from the University of Maine. After graduating, Skye bounced around the country on her quest to protect the earth, tracking blackbirds through the mountains of New Hampshire, studying quail in the pine savannas of Florida's Panhandle, monitoring songbird nests in the sagebrush scrub of Montana, and leading folks on educational adventures on the rocky coast of Maine. She was drawn to North Carolina by the diverse mountains, cascading waterfalls, and a potential to share her love for the outdoors with the communities here. We're so happy you're here. In her spare time, Skye enjoys hiking, foraging, cooking, admiring mosses and mushrooms, and doing yoga in the sunshine. On rainy days, she can be found painting, playing her ukulele, badly, and cuddling her cat, Felix. Please join me in welcoming Skye Cahoon and her message titled, "The Missing Native Link."
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I hope you are enjoying this beautiful sunshiny morning as much as I am. I have some slides. Should I wait or should I go ahead? Great. That's great. Well, I work for Mainspring Conservation Trust, as Mary mentioned. So if you are unfamiliar with our work, I'm just going to take a minute to kind of describe to you what we do. Next slide. We are a nonprofit land trust whose roots are here in Franklin, but we work in the 6 most western counties of North Carolina. As a land trust, of course, we protect public and private land. There's a few examples of public preserves around here where you can go and walk trails and read a kiosk, and I have some trail brochures in the back if you're interested in learning more. But kind of our bread and butter conservation model is to work with willing landowners to put conservation easements on private property. So people who just care about their land, who don't necessarily want to donate it, but who want to protect it. Next slide. Of course, nothing in nature functions in a vacuum, so we also do a lot of other conservation work, including water protection. We protect water quality through stream and wetland restorations, improving aquatic habitat and the water quality itself, the cleanliness of the water, and we also host a stream biomonitoring program that's been going on for over 30 years and has amassed one of the largest databases of its kind in the world. So kind of interviewing the fish and asking them what their water quality is like. By the proportion and abundance of different species that we catch during our biomonitoring sessions, we can kind of extrapolate how clean the water is. Next slide. We also protect cultural history, which is kind of unique for a land trust. That's both Appalachian history and Cherokee history. We helped with the protection of the Cowie School structure, and we own the Rickman Store, General Store. And we also work closely with the tribe to protect and pass back land. Next slide. Part of our land conservation work is agricultural land. We have some of the richest soils in the world here in western North Carolina, and we want them to stay that way. We want them to continue feeding the people that live on them, just as they have for thousands of years, so we work with a lot of farmers. Next slide. We also remediate brownfields. If you know our office in downtown Franklin, the lot next door used to be a petroleum distribution center and is now a sweet little green space, a native tree woodland where there's birds nesting and there's box turtles passing through. So we clean up polluted sites. Next slide. And we do a lot of education. So that's working with schools and homeschool groups, and then we have a bunch of public events, most of them free or donation-based, because how can you love and want to protect something without knowing about it? So come out to a hike or a workshop or a talk or a social mixer if you want to learn more. We've got a schedule on our website, and again, I have more info at the back for the end. Next slide. Mary asked me to kind of talk a little bit about what drew me to this work and why I'm in this field. So as she mentioned, I thought I wanted to be a research scientist. Growing up, I loved animals. I knew I loved animals. I knew I loved nature and the outdoors. So I thought maybe I'll be a zookeeper or a vet, because those are the two options that are presented to you when you're a kid and you love animals. But then I got to college and realized that I love science. I love discovery and learning and curiosity. So I went into wildlife research. And I worked in academia for about a year after I graduated and realized pretty quickly that it wasn't for me. There was so much amazing knowledge being discovered and talked about in the science community, and almost none of it was being meaningfully communicated to the public. And yes, I thought to myself, what is the point if no one knows about any of this? It's just kind of me alone in the woods, having fun and tracking birds, but that is not helpful to our planet. And wouldn't it be so much more helpful if I could be in a place where I could join hands with other people and inspire them to be passionate advocates for the earth? So that's why I am here. I am a natural science communicator, is how I present myself now, and kind of my spiritual take on it is that it's humans' sacred duty to steward the earth, but we have such a disconnect because of our individualistic culture from the consequences of our actions and how even just a small action can be helpful on any scale. So my goal is really to reconnect people with the joy and the wonder of nature and how we are part of it. We are not separate from it, even though we are very good at convincing ourselves that we are. And I draw a lot of inspiration from Indigenous teachers and Indigenous wisdom. A lot of my spiritual beliefs don't come just from myself, so I give thanks to them for sharing their wonder and their intelligence, their wisdom. Next slide, please. So today I am here to talk to you about basically the importance of native plants and why the lack of native plants is a big issue for our ecology, our local ecology, and global ecology, really. So quickly, I just wanted to go through what even is a native plant, because the terms native, non-native, and invasive, sometimes we toss them around without fully understanding and appreciating the definition behind those. Next slide. A native plant generally is one that is considered to have evolved where it is. So here in North America, that often means a plant that existed on this continent before European contact. A plant that grew up here in evolutionary time alongside other native plants and other native wildlife. Next slide. Now, a native plant isn't necessarily just native to North America, it's native to a particular region. So there's a lot of different ways you can describe a region, but this is one definition of it, so the Appalachians and the Ozark forests. There are plenty of plants that are native here that are invasive in other parts of North America. So this is spotted jewelweed, which is a super common plant here in western North Carolina. It's a great hummingbird feeder. It's our native aloe. It's a poison ivy cure. It's a beautiful plant. It's a little aggressive. It's an annual that self-seeds very prolifically, but since it is a native plant, it can, by definition, not be invasive. It's simply aggressive. However, in the Pacific Northwest, this plant is invasive because it is not from that region, and it is displacing native plants that are native to that region. Next slide. A non-native plant is not necessarily harmful. It could just be net neutral. It's simply a plant that didn't evolve in this region. Many of our ornamental and our crop plants fall into this category. Zinnias, for example, are native to Central America, but we don't see them taking over fields and roadsides here. They might seed kind of randomly in a place here or there, but they're not taking over a habitat. Next slide. And an invasive plant is a species that is not native here and is aggressively outcompeting our native plants for resources like sunlight, soil space, water, nutrients, things like that. So the classic example is kudzu, the vine that ate the South, a pretty graphic example of how invasive plants can basically form a sterile monoculture. They just push everything else out, and wildlife don't benefit from these plants. So there's not much good that comes from a huge expanse of kudzu other than a lot of basket-making materials. Next slide. So that's the definition, but why does that matter, right? Next slide. So native plants, since they essentially grew up here through evolutionary time, they have their own special place in the food webs, the food chain, as well as the habitat. Next slide. They create this interwoven web of life where everything is in relationship with each other and is balanced. The plants support the plants support the animals support the plants, and everything is kind of kept in check by native predators and pests and diseases. This picture here is a goldenrod and a purple aster, both native plants, both growing next to each other. Both of these colors, yellow and purple, are highly attractive to bees on their own. But when these two plants grow next to each other, they actually have a higher rate of pollination than if they grew separately, because the bees are especially attracted to both of those colors together. So if those plants grew separately, they would not reproduce as efficiently as if they grew together. That is an example from Dr. Robin Walt Kimmerer and Braiding Sweetgrass, one of my favorite books. Next slide. Plants, of course, as well, are the base of the food web. They are more than the static backdrop that life plays out on. They are part of the food web and they contribute to it. And of course, without them, we don't really have nature. Next slide. In addition, there are some animals, particularly insects, that need specific native plants to complete their life cycle. Next slide. The classic beloved example is the monarch butterfly. Who can tell me what plant the monarchs need? Milkweed. Next slide. Yes, the monarchs need the milkweed, but it is the monarch caterpillars that need the milkweed. The monarch butterflies, the adults, they can feed from any flower. They could feed from the zinnias in your garden. They could even feed from the kudzu blooms. But their caterpillars are like the insect equivalent of a picky toddler who will not eat anything that's not breaded and shaped like a dinosaur, which is to say they can only eat milkweed and they will die if they eat anything else, and they even have adaptations to help them eat that milkweed. For example, the caterpillars will chew the central vein of the leaf to release the toxic latex from the rest of the leaf so they can eat it a little more safely, and they have a special digestive system to help them tolerate that poisonous sap that the milkweed has. Next slide. So we have many, many, many examples of this in the insect world. I won't rattle on with many of them, but I'll give you just a few specific examples. So this here is a West Virginia white butterfly, which is threatened in the state of North Carolina, the step above endangered. That picture on the left is its caterpillar host plant. It hosts on 2 species of native toothwort, which are early spring bloomers. And then that plant on the right is invasive non-native garlic mustard. Garlic mustard is a particularly threatening invasive plant because it thrives in full shade. Many of our invasive plants need full sun, but since garlic mustard thrives in full shade, it can really push out all of our really charismatic understory wildflower species like trilliums that thrive in full shade. It also is so similar to the native toothwort that the West Virginia white confuses it for the toothwort and lays its eggs on garlic mustard. But it is just different enough as to kill the caterpillars that eat it. So essentially, garlic mustard is trapping the West Virginia white caterpillars and killing them. And research has been done in this plant as one specific chemical compound in this plant that is killing the caterpillars. And of course, this is happening at a rate too fast for the butterflies to evolve to. So kind of the human rate of change in the landscape happens faster than the natural rate of evolution. Next slide. This is the mock orange scissor bee. We often hear kind of the slogan, "Save the bees," which is often directed towards honeybees. Honeybees are a non-native livestock species from Europe. None of our native bees make honey, and we have over 500 species of native bees here in Western North Carolina. Many of them also need particular native plants. Just like butterflies, the adults can feed from any flower. They'll drink nectar from any flower, but they are collecting pollen for their babies to feed their babies. And often these native bees will have specific native plants that they collect pollen from in order to feed their babies. So just like the butterflies, you would be fine with the adults if you had no native plants, but the life cycle would break down. You would not have any baby bees. This mock orange scissor bee collects pollen from mock oranges and from raspberries and from no other plants. And just like many of our native bees, she's a hardworking single mom. She does not have a social hive, so she builds her own nest, usually in the ground or in dead standing plant stems. And she makes one little cell for each egg, and she packs in there pollen and usually some sort of padding, either bits of leaves or petals or specific kinds of mud or clay to protect her babies. And she seals that cell up with all the pollen that they need to make it through their squishy larval stage, the bee version of a caterpillar, into an adult. Next slide. This is a Bachman's warbler. This was a migratory songbird that was declared officially extinct in October of 2023, pretty recently. And this picture down here is native river cane, one of our 3 native bamboo species. Native river cane is a critically important plant to many wildlife as well as to the Cherokee. It's a culturally important plant that they use for many things: construction, clothing, food, blowguns for hunting, baskets, namely. They make beautiful baskets out of this plant, and it has suffered a 98% population decline since European settlement. And it's thought that the extinction of this bird is because of the decline of river cane, because it was thought to be a river cane specialist. This warbler was known to hang upside down and probe its beak into the dead leaf clusters at the base of each of those stems, foraging for insects, and it also nested in the river cane. And when European colonists first came here, they were doing selective logging, taking a few trees from the forest here or there, and that actually increased river cane numbers, because that is a great method for forestry. It gives us wood as well as keeps the forest healthy. But then they switched to clear cutting, and that was not so good for the river cane. River cane populations plummeted, Bachman's warblers populations plummeted, and then around 1940, a devastating winter hurricane hit Cuba, where the Bachman's warblers overwinter and decimated their remaining population to the point where males and females could no longer find each other on the landscape to breed. Sightings became more and more scarce, more and more rare, and this bird, the last time it was seen was in the 80s. So after about 30 years of no confirmed official reports, it was declared extinct. There are also butterflies that use the river cane as their host plant, and no other plants their caterpillars can eat. Next slide. So when you have a diverse and resilient base to your food web of native plants, you have a diverse and resilient collection of wildlife that benefit from them. You see here a chickadee feeding their fledgling. So you may be familiar with a man named Doug Tallamy. He's done a lot of really crucial research on on the link between native plants and native insects in particular, and how that benefits the rest of wildlife. He's got a bunch of books that are very interesting if you want to learn more. But one of his most cited statistics is that in order for one nest of chickadees to fledge, so for a little bit of backstory, songbirds, they spend between 1 and 2 weeks, 1 to 3 weeks in the nest, not flying. Their parents come visit the nest to feed them, and then they fledge. So they're basically a teenager hopping around on the ground, and their parents still come feed them, but they're a little more mobile. So for one nest of chickadees to fledge, so that's not reach adulthood, but just to leave the nest to enter their teenage stage, they need between 350 and 570 caterpillars per day for 2 weeks. So after a little bit of math, that works out to between 6,000 and 9,000 caterpillars just for one nest of chickadees to fledge. If this nest of chickadees is in an oak tree, they're good to go, because oaks collectively host the most insects out of any of our native plants. The oak family in general hosts over 1,000 species of native insects. So those chickadee parents, they don't have to go far, 350 to 570 times per day to feed their babies, kind of the equivalent of getting off your couch and going to the fridge, because there's plenty of native insects that are eating these oak leaves and the acorns and all the other things in this tree, so the chickadee just has to kind of hop out, find a caterpillar, and hop back. By comparison, if this chickadee was nesting in a privet hedge, and privet is one of our rank 1 severe threat invasive non-native plants, they will have to go quite far because there are no native insects that host on privet. And so that would be the equivalent of leaving your couch and going to the grocery store 350 to 570 times per day, which is not as efficient, much lower chance that that nest of chickadees gets to fledge. So the more native plants we have, the more insects we have, and the more we can feed everything else. Next slide. So I just want to leave y'all with a few action steps that you can take to kind of give yourself hope and also give the natural world hope. It's very easy to get caught up in an all or nothing mindset or kind of play a numbers game. These action steps are particularly for landowners who own land, but a lot of these you can do even if you're renting. One single native plant in a pot is helpful to wildlife. I have native plants in pots on my porch, and I see the native bees come through all the time, feasting on those, and the butterflies, and the one hummingbird that lives in my neighborhood will come and drink from the one cardinal flower that is in a pot on my porch. So some action steps, and I have a more detailed handout of this in the back. And also for the Zoomies, I have sent a virtual version to Mary so she can email it along to you. But the first step would be removing those invasive species as much as you can and planting native plants in their place. Invasive species are an actual threat to the environment in the same way as bulldozing it down and paving a parking lot. They do ecological harm. So removing those is one of the best things you can do for the natural world. And you don't even have to do that on your own property. You can pull a little bit of privet or English ivy when you hike, and I promise you that no one will say anything if them saying nothing to me is any indication. Also, reducing chemical use, any chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, chemical fertilizers, rat bait, or poison. Those things don't stay in one area. They work their way through the food chain, through the food web. They work their way into our drinking water. They stay in the soil. These are choices that have very long-term consequences. You can change your maintenance regime. This one is super easy. You can just mow the grass a little taller. You can mow it a little less frequently. You can leave the leaves or the sticks. That's a nice, catchy slogan. If you want more fireflies, leave the leaves and come speak to me after about why that is important, and I would be happy to tell you. Long story short, the leaves and the sticks are food, and they are habitat for lots and lots of important creatures, including lots of important insects like Luna moths and bumblebees. They depend on leaf litter. Fireflies also depend on leaf litter. Ask me more later. Shrink your lawn. So most of our ornamental grasses, our lawn grasses, are not native. Some of them are verging on invasive, and as we know, our native wildlife, they don't really benefit from non-native grasses. The deer will probably eat it, but there are lots of insect species and small mammal species and bird species that rely on our native grasses that are not getting what they need because most of our grassy areas are non-native grasses now. I'm not saying that you can't have a lawn, because I enjoy having a lawn, having nice green space to run around, but just consider where you're actually using that lawn, and maybe rewild or plant native plants where you don't use it, and then you have to mow less, and you have to spend less on gas for the mower, and it's just kind of a win-win. Planting native trees, like I said, oak trees are, if you want to do one thing for wildlife on your property, plant an oak tree. It's not just insects, but everything will eat the acorns too. Turkey, deer, blue jays, those are a really important food source. And trees in general are going to host more insect species than herbaceous or non-woody plants. If you do want to rewild part of your property or kind of invite nature back into your space, you can stack, pack, and layer native plants. So, of course, an intact, healthy, natural area, it's going to look a little different than a manicured garden. So you want to shove as much diversity into a small space as you can. And you will be pleasantly surprised at how much will make a home in just a small space if you have trees and understory plants and vines in between. There's a lot of different habitats and niches, different homes that critters can find in there. Next slide. You can target pollinators to support. So our 500 species of native bees, they are all not around all year. Some of them only fly for a few weeks out of the year because they are looking for specific native plants. So those mock orange scissor bees, you're only going to see them when the mock orange is blooming because they have evolved to be around when their particular host plant is in bloom. So if you're interested in particular species, or if you notice a cool species of pollinator on your property, do a little research into it. The Xerxes Society is a great place for that. The North Carolina Extension Office has a lot of really cool information on pollinators. Look them up, spend an hour reading about them and what plants they like and when they fly and how you can support them in particular. A really great thing to do for a lot of native bees is to not cut down dead plant stems because they nest in there. It's not the living plant stems that they want, it's the dead plants from last year. So if you're always cleaning up your garden and cutting down the dead stems as soon as the weather starts to get a little warm, you're taking away bee homes. You can install wildlife-friendly features, so a tiny pond. If you have to have outdoor nighttime lighting, you can face it downwards. You can use a red bulb. You can put it on a motion sensor. You can install nest boxes or bat boxes. Those things, depending on what species you're looking to target, might take a little research, particularly bat boxes. Those bats are a little picky, but I have a good resource if you're interested in learning more about how and why to hang a bat box. And finally, don't just do it yourself. Make friends who feel the same way. I'm sure there are many people in this room who feel the exact same way and who want to help. And it's easy to feel like your actions don't have a lot of impact because you're just one drop in the bucket. But the ocean is made up of a lot of tiny drops. And so we have to keep faith and have hope that even just our small actions are very helpful. And I have a few examples to help you have that hope. If I can have the next slide, please. Oh, and next slide after that. There's my 10th step. Okay, this is a red-backed salamander. This is one of the most common vertebrates on the East Coast. If you take all of the red-backed salamanders in the state of Maine, and you take all of the moose in the state of Maine, and you weigh them all, there are more salamanders than they are moose, because there are that many in the woods. They are incredibly numerous, and their home territory is 1 to 3 square meters. So these salamanders could spend their whole lives in your garden, and if you have a bunch of native plants, they will be very happy there. And they will also eat a lot of insects there that could otherwise hurt your tomatoes. Next slide, please. This is a black-throated blue warbler, one of my favorite bird species that is, of course, declining in the state of North Carolina, as many birds are. This bird nests here. It's a seasonal resident, and it flies all the way down to Central America to overwinter. There was one study that found that these birds, they fly all the way down to Central America, and then they come all the way back in the spring, and around 40% of them return to within 500 feet of their previous year's breeding territory. So if you have a black-throated blue warbler nesting on your property, and the next year there's one nesting nearby, it's likely that it's the same bird. Who knows that your property is a good and safe place to raise their family. Next slide. This is a rose miner bee, another one of our specialist native bees who collects pollen from wild strawberries. and is considered a very important pollinator of this plant. Native bees, one of their roles is that they are, of course, seeking their special particular host plants, and they will travel very far into the woods to find those host plants, farther than lazy honeybees would, to pollinate trilliums and all the other beautiful woodland wildflowers that we love. But this rose minor bee, she collects pollen from wild strawberries, and that plant grows very densely, so even a patch of just a few square meters could support multiple bees in raising their family. So that is all I have for y'all today. I am happy to take questions or comments. If you have any concerns, I will give you my boss's number.
Very specific question. We've had whippoorwills that would show up the first week of June for many years. The last 2 years, I haven't heard them. What might we have changed?
We can't quite hear, sorry.
For many years, we had whippoorwills the first week of June. The last 2 years, I haven't heard them. What might we have done wrong?
I was actually talking about this before service. It's probably not you. Birds are kind of in the midst of an apocalypse right now because of a combination of a bunch of different things. But basically across the nation, their populations are plummeting, and it might just be that it's the surrounding effects, and it's not anything on your property. Like I said, nothing in nature functions in a vacuum. So it could be someone put up a new skyscraper on their migration route, or maybe in their overwintering territory, someone was using too many pesticides. If you've got native plants and you are letting them grow and you're not using chemicals, it's probably not on you, unfortunately.
Hi, Skye. It's Bonnie Bramlick, and I have a question. It is related. When I see lawns, grass, it really hurts me to see it. And in addition to what you said, someone once told me that when I look at that pretty grass, I might as well imagine it being concrete for all the good it does for water and seeping into the earth and the mycorrhizae, all that stuff. That's true too then?
Grass is a fraction better than pavement, for sure, because grass is not impervious. So in conservation worlds, we use a term impervious surfaces. So pavement, cement, the roof on your house, basically any surface where water hits it and runs right off, is pretty bad ecologically for the water system, for the natural world in general, for the wildlife. So grass allowing water to seep into the earth rather than just run right off is better than cement. It's also allowing the mycorrhizae to be there, so the fungi in the soil. There's not going to be like really healthy and diverse mycorrhizae, but probably more than there would be under cement. However, still not good. For many reasons, quickly, grass has really shallow roots, and so it doesn't filter runoff the same way that native plants do. So a lot more pollutants will get into our waterways just by virtue of not being filtered by anything other than grass roots. Those shallow roots also contribute to erosion. So even if you are far away from a creek bank or a river bank, if you have a lot of grass, it's still allowing any water, any rain that falls on it to carry some of the soil away into our rivers and our creeks. And our number one water pollutant here in Western North Carolina is just sediment. It's not oil, it's not Roundup, it's just dirt. So those are the two kind of big uns for grass, and then in addition to native wildlife can't really use it. So it's not good, but it's not quite as bad as a bunch of cement. Yeah.
I'm Barbara, and I wanted to recheck that the fall foliage from trees, all the leaves, is that still a very good mulch to put on your garden? perfect.
It's awesome.
Okay,
Yes,
very good.
yes.
And then one more question is, I feed my birds with black oil sunflower seeds. Is that okay to do?
That is perfectly okay, as long as you are cleaning the feeder somewhat regularly and you're watching to make sure that there aren't birds with disease visiting regularly. But sunflower seeds are a great choice. Lots of birds like that.
Hi, I'm Caleb, and I live in Silva, and we have about 6 acres of hilly pasture, which was completely lawned and over manicured, and we've pulled it back, and now we're mowing a fraction, but we have a lot of hornets, and we've started using the fake hornet nests, which work a little bit, and on that sort of idea, we've started to, if they tend to make homes right near our barn, which we go by a lot. We've had to kill them. I know it's awful, but with pesticide, and now we're just leaving the nets, thinking, oh well, maybe they'll see it and think it's occupied and stay away. Is that something we can, do you think that's a good idea? You think that might be helping?
That could be helping, yeah.
Okay.
I am not an entomologist. I've never
Okay.
interviewed a wasp.
Thank you.
But yeah, they are territorial, so I think you're on the right track.
Yes, I have a question. When I was a little girl, I spent a lot of times in the woods, and I found we had what we call green cotton. It grows on white oak trees. And I was wondering, do you know what that is? I think it may be an insect house, but we always got it. We collected it and chewed it because it had a lot of, I guess, it was sour and very moist. It looked like, well, anyway, do you know what I'm talking about?
Can you describe what it looks like?
Okay, it's a ball. It's about the size, a little bit about the size of a tennis ball, and it is basically white with little pink dots in it, and it's very sour, like oxalic acid. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I know what that is. I might be about to give you nightmares. It's a wasp gall, an oak gall. So in addition to all of our bee species, we have even more native wasp species, which is not a cause for concern because many of them are parasitic. They can't even sting. They actually parasitize other insects, including things like tomato hornworms, which are terrorizing your garden. Some of them parasitize plants, and so they lay their eggs inside the plant. The oak galls, which I'm pretty sure is what you're talking about, is one of those. So a wasp will come up with a long, what looks like a long, scary stinger, but it's actually an ovipositor. So what they lay their eggs out of, and stick that into the oak tree, lay her eggs inside the oak tree, and then from there, research is a little divided. Either what happens is the tree has basically an immune response to the parasites and forms kind of a scar around it, or at the same time as egg laying, the wasp inserts some hormones that make the plant grow a little differently. And what forms from that is a gall, is a round ball. And inside there are the eggs and then eventually the larvae. And then eventually that gall will kind of hollow out and a little hole, the larvae inside will form a little hole and the adults will fly out.
I've seen those, and I wondered if that's what it was.
I think that is what it is.
But we didn't eat it, but we would just crush it with our mouth.
You live to tell the tale.
And
Actually, our original inks were made out of those. You'd soak a bunch of dried oak galls in water and then add a little bit of iron, and that's the ink that the Constitution was written with. So, a little historical. Yeah.
And then I heard a little song, a very old song that had it in it.
interesting. I'll have to look that up. Cool.
So, yeah, I had a question, because I'm building a native food forest, and in order to do that, you have to deal with what's currently present on the property, natives, invasives, and otherwise. And I've had a bunch of difficulties with a variety of invasive wildlife, of course, but the two predominant ones would be Japanese stiltgrass, which has gotten beyond control, and the wriggling worms that I forgot the actual name of, with those nightmares that even the chickens won't eat. So I'm curious if there's any advice that you could give about dealing with those plants, because I know with Japanese stiltgrass, they have a seed bank for up to 5 years. So if you cut them every year at the end of the season and stuff, it's a lengthy process. But I'm curious if you had any advice for that, but also if you knew of any consolidated or indexed resources for dealing with invasive wildlife in our area.
I'd go to the extension for help with invasive wildlife. The worms, I think there's not too much that you can do, unfortunately. We have a lot of invasive worms. As far as I know, none of our earthworms are native species. They are all introduced species. And so they're kind of just like here, and there's not much we can do about it. With stiltgrass, usually the advice is to mow it every year and before it seeds, and just wait for the seed bank to run out. You can also smother it with cardboard or with like black plastic. The black plastic solarizes it, heats it up, and so it basically bakes it, and so it can also kill the seeds in the seed bank, but it also kills everything else. So you need to plant it pretty quick after you remove the plastic. And it can affect the soil quality if you're solarizing it. But just mowing is really one of the best ways. You have to be persistent about it, but it works.
Or you could pull it.
You can pull it. You can.
So wonderful. Thank you, Skye. We are so fortunate to have you with us and share all that wonderful information and have more on the back. And for the Zoomies, Skye will spend a few minutes with you and answer your questions after the service, and we'll hope you join us for coffee, and then we can have more questions and more answers. How wonderful. We are grateful to have been a certified Green Sanctuary congregation since 2005. Our sanctuary was built as green as we could afford, and we continue our commitment to the environment as a denomination, a congregation, and as individuals. We invite roomies to take one of the environmental justice pamphlets on the table at the entry, along with Skye's materials, to learn more about the work of the UUA. Zoomies, please let Penny know if you'd like one mailed to you. We are also grateful for all the diverse gifts of time, talent, and treasure that are given by so many in love and in hope. Please give generously to the life and work of this beloved community. And now please join me in the dedication of our gifts. Gifts given in love and hope continue a cycle of love and hope. So may it be. Thank you for your support. All financial gifts are appreciated. There's an offering plate at the sanctuary entry where there are also stamped addressed envelopes to mail. Donations are also welcome electronically, including PayPal link on our website and in the UU View. There's also this lovely celebration jar right here. Yay. And a basket for coffee donations downstairs in Celebration Hall. As we prepare for Joyce and concerns, know they'll be edited out before being posted online. It is a joy to welcome visitors this morning. If you'd like to introduce yourself, please raise your hand on Zoom first if we have any visitors there. We are all well known to each other. And now in the sanctuary, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Claire. I know most of you. I brought a couple family members today. This is my husband, Garrett. And this is my niece, America. She's staying with us for the weekend.
Yay, yay, yay. How wonderful to have you with us. Is there anyone else? All right, we look forward to getting to know you better during coffee hour. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Now we open our hearts to one another. If you carry a joy, a celebration, a piece of good news, let us rejoice with you. If you carry a concern, a grief, a worry, or a pain, let us share the burden. If you would like, you're welcome to share a brief special joy or concern, and I'll drop a pebble into the water. We'll begin with those on Zoom, and we'll follow those in the sanctuary, and we invite those in the sanctuary to line up by the piano. We'll begin on Zoom. A last final pebble as we remember those who have spoken, those they have named, and those we hold in silence in our hearts. We now invite you into a minute of silence. You can choose to meditate, pray, reflect on something you've heard here today, or simply sit silently in community with others, and I'll bring you back with the chimes. Our closing hymn is number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning. Our chalice extinguishing. Though we extinguish this flame, its warmth and light remain with us, as steady as the ancient ridgelines, as enduring as the roots of rhododendron. May we walk with care through forests of oak, hickory, and hemlock, attuned to the hush of the owl, the scamper of the gray fox, the rustic ferns beneath black bear paws. Let our living honor the trillium's quiet bloom, the red-spotted newt's bright journey, the hawk's wide circling over misty hollows. For in this sacred web, woven with lichen, laurel, and stream, we are not above but among, not owners but kin, and always, always called to reverence. Thank you for joining us today. Following service, those on Zoom are invited to continue the conversation, and Skye will visit with you, and those in the sanctuary are invited to social time in Celebration Hall, and they'll get to visit with Skye as well. Next week, we'll explore what we carry in our backpacks, purses, and totes, and more with our annual backpack blessing. So we invite all the young ones and anyone else who wants to bring a backpack to have it blessed. It's also Potluck Sunday. Please rise in body and spirit. Those in the sanctuary may choose to hold hands and maybe make a full circle around. All right. Viola, maybe you can come that way to Lara. And we've got wonderful room for Bruce as well. Fantastic. There we go. Yay. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and community is its goal. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So may it be. Now let's turn roomies and wave goodbye to our Zoomies over there above the door. Yay, and they're waving back